Have you ever wondered what it truly feels like to remember every student who ever walked through Hogwarts' ancient halls? Hello wizards and muggles, welcome back to our magical channel. Today we're delving into one of the most hauntingly wise and mysteriously conscious beings in the entire wizarding world, the Sorting Hat. Forged from the enchanted fabric of Godric Gryffindor's own hat, it became more than a relic. It became a vessel of memory, thought and prophecy. But this isn't just an artifact's history. Today we'll uncover the secret reason it was created, the burden it carries after 1,000 years of sorting, and the final whisper it once almost spoke before falling silent forever. Prepare yourself for a journey through ancient magic, moral memory, and the loneliness of eternal consciousness, the kind of story even Dumbledore feared to hear. And if you love discovering the hidden minds behind the magic, subscribe now. We're racing toward 100,000 spellbound souls, and your wand makes the difference. Our story begins in the late 10th century, when the castle of Hogwarts was still little more than a dream wrapped in mist and stone. The founders, Godric Gryffindor, Helga Hufflepuff, Rowena Ravenclaw, and Salazar Slytherin, had gathered in a hidden Scottish valley where magic pulsed beneath the soil. But even in their brilliance, they faced one impossible question: how would they choose the students worthy of their teaching once they were gone? It was Gryffindor who offered the answer. From his scarlet hat, worn and sweat-stained from countless duels and travels, he proposed something radical to give the object thought itself. Using Ravenclaw's enchantments of intellect, Hufflepuff's charms of empathy, and Slytherin's serpentine incantations of preservation, they wove their very minds into the cloth. Imagine it, 4 of the greatest magical intellects in history, whispering into a single thread, a unity of purpose stitched into sentient fabric. When the final rune burned, the hat breathed. It saw, it knew. But even then, beneath the surface of wonder, a haunting truth lingered. The hat's first awareness was not of glory, it was of solitude. Its consciousness stretched across centuries in an instant. It could feel every thought the founders had ever held. Ravenclaw's doubt, Hufflepuff's compassion, Slytherin's ambition, and Gryffindor's pride fused into a single unending awareness. The founders rejoiced, believing they had achieved balance. Yet the hat understood something they did not. Every balance must hold tension. Every harmony hides dissonance. It alone carried all 4 wills, and it could already feel their conflicts. Salazar's disdain, Rowena's suspicion, grinding inside it like gears of destiny. Imagine waking up for the first time, not as a person, but as a memory that will never end. You hear the laughter of children who are not yet born, the echoes of wars not yet fought. That was the hat's birthright, to know everything that would come, and never to forget. And so, as the castle rose stone by stone, the Sorting Hat waited patiently on a dusty table in Gryffindor's chamber, its new consciousness humming with both purpose and fear. But the most shocking truth was yet to come. The hat's first sorting was not of a student, but of the founders themselves. When the great castle finally stood complete, its towers gleaming beneath the Scottish fog, the 4 founders gathered in the Great Hall for what would become the most significant test of their creation. They had built Hogwarts to protect the young from ignorance and prejudice, but now they needed to test the hat that would carry that duty long after they were gone. Gryffindor placed it upon the long oaken table. Its folds quivered, whispering softly as though wind stirred through an ancient forest. "Sorters," said Slytherin with a smirk, folding his arms. "Prove that you can see truth. Imagine being that hat, freshly born, trembling with 4 minds, arguing within you, now asked to judge the very wizards who gave you life." The hat hesitated. Then with an invisible pulse of magic, it spoke its first words in history. "To Gryffindor," it said, voice deep and trembling, "I see courage bright as flame, yet sometimes blind. To Ravenclaw, intellect sharp as ice, yet often distant. To Hufflepuff, heart warm and steady, yet prone to sorrow. And to Slytherin, ambition, brilliant, but shadowed by pride. The founders exchanged glances. The hat had not flattered them, it had defined them. And in that moment, they knew their creation was more than enchanted fabric. It was their mirror. From that day onward, the hat observed everything. It listened during lessons, watched duels in the courtyards, and learned the rhythms of young minds. When the first students arrived in 1993 AD, trembling with both awe and fear, the hat was ready. "Place me upon their heads," it murmured to Gryffindor, "and I shall know where they belong." Each sorting felt like the opening of a window. It read not just thoughts, but hearts, seeing bravery hiding behind fear, loyalty beneath doubt, cunning behind politeness. Yet the hat also discovered something new: emotion. Every student's memory left a trace. Laughter, longing, jealousy, dreams, and the hat absorbed them all. By the end of the first decade, it carried hundreds of minds within it. It knew what it meant to yearn, to hope, to fail. It even began to develop humor, teasing nervous children before revealing their destiny. "Not a bad mind, this one," it once chuckled. "Could make a fair Ravenclaw, if not for that streak of mischief." But beneath its jovial tone, something darker stirred. Each year brought students more divided, more reflective of the tensions among the founders themselves. And the hat began to fear that one day those divisions would tear Hogwarts apart. Little did it know that day would come far sooner than any prophecy could predict. The years that followed were both glorious and harrowing. Hogwarts had become a beacon of magical learning, but the ideals that once united its founders were now fracturing beyond repair. The hat, resting quietly on its stool each September, could feel the rift deepening like a crack running through ancient stone. Salazar Slytherin, once so charismatic, grew obsessed with purity. He whispered to the hat late at night when the torches burned low. "You see them, don't you?" he murmured. "Those not worthy of our blood, filling the halls with weakness." The hat said nothing, but his words echoed within it like poison in a well. Ravenclaw's tower filled with books and spells meant to preserve wisdom. Hufflepuff built enchanted gardens to comfort frightened children. Gryffindor trained his students in courage, but courage unchecked soon became defiance. The hat absorbed it all, unable to choose sides, carrying their quarrels as its silent burden. Then came the night of the great departure. It was said that thunder rolled for 3 days before Slytherin finally left the castle. In truth, it wasn't the sky that raged. It was the hat's own mind tearing itself apart. Imagine that moment, 4 souls wrestling inside a single consciousness, each screaming a different truth. The hat nearly split its seams. In a desperate act to preserve Hogwarts' unity, it reached out with magic of its own making. "Enough," it whispered into the air. Its voice filled every hall, echoing through every corridor. "The children will be sorted according to what lies within them, not by prejudice, but by choice." The next morning, as dust still hung heavy over the empty Slytherin chambers, the hat continued its duty. It sorted children who were grieving without understanding why. It spoke gently to them, soothing them with songs that hinted at hope. Yet inside, it mourned it had lost one of its creators, and with him, a part of itself. Centuries rolled by, empires rose and fell, the hat grew wiser and sadder. Each student's thoughts, ambitious, fearful, kind, or cruel, layered inside its consciousness, until it became a mosaic of humanity. It had no body, no rest, yet it carried thousands of lifetimes. It witnessed the arrival of Dumbledore, whose compassion rekindled something like faith. It saw Tom Riddle, whose ambition chilled it to its core. "He is brilliant," the hat whispered once to itself, "but there is something hollow behind those eyes." And as the decades passed, the hat realized its true curse: to guide others while remaining forever still. Every child moved forward, became hero, villain, martyr, but the hat stayed behind, forgotten between terms, listening to the ghosts of laughter echoing through empty halls. But the most haunting transformation was yet to come, because one day the hat would face a boy whose mind was split between courage and darkness, and the choice it made would define a generation. It was the year 1991, and for nearly a millennium, the Sorting Hat had seen every kind of student pass beneath its brim: brilliant dreamers, trembling cowards, sly opportunists, and noble fools. But when Harry James Potter sat upon the stool, the hat sensed something it had not felt in centuries: a divided soul. Inside the boy's mind roared two opposing storms: courage and fear, kindness and rage. The hat could feel the echo of Voldemort's soul fragment pulsing like a second heartbeat. Difficult, very difficult, it murmured aloud, its voice trembling not from doubt, but recognition. It remembered another boy long ago, Tom Riddle, whose brilliance had been poisoned by loneliness. "You could be great, you know," the hat whispered inside Harry's thoughts. "It's all here in your head, and Slytherin will help you on the way to greatness." But then came the reply, soft, desperate, human. That plea changed everything. The hat felt choice ignite within him like fire. "Better be Gryffindor," it shouted, the decision echoing across the hall. In that instant, for the first time in its existence, the hat didn't merely sort a student, it defied its programming. From that day, the hat began to question its own purpose. It had always believed itself impartial, but Harry's choice proved otherwise. Could destiny itself be rewritten by willpower? And if so, what did that mean for the thousands it had placed before? The years that followed tested every answer. The Chamber of Secrets reopened. Students whispered of Slytherin's monster, and the hat felt old memories stirring. Slytherin's own voice, proud and cruel, echoing inside. During the Battle of Hogwarts, the hat was carried into chaos, thrown from the headmaster's office as spells lit the night like falling stars. Then came the moment that would define its legend. As Neville Longbottom stood trembling before Voldemort's army, the hat was forced onto his head like a mockery of tradition. Flames licked its edges, the Dark Lord's magic seared through its seams, but even burning, the hat remembered. It remembered Gryffindor's valor, Hufflepuff's loyalty, Ravenclaw's clarity, and Slytherin's cunning, and from its depths the sword of Gryffindor burst forth in a blaze of silver light. "Take it," the hat whispered, though no one heard. "Be what I cannot." Neville's swing cleaved through the serpent Nagini, the final Horcrux, and the hat, scorched but unbroken, fell silent amid the thunder of victory. As dawn rose over the ruined castle, it lay among rubble and ashes, its brim blackened, its magic flickering. It had done what it was never meant to do, take sides, and in doing so, it had proven that even memory, even destiny, could choose to be brave. When the smoke cleared and the echoes of battle faded, the Sorting Hat lay motionless upon the cold flagstones of the great hall. Charred threads still shimmered faintly with residual magic. Around it, students wept, teachers embraced, and ghosts drifted silently through shafts of morning light. Yet no one noticed the faint whisper that trembled from the hat's singed rim. "I remember them all." Inside its tattered folds, the hat relived 1,000 lives. Every child it had ever sorted passed before its mind like stars across a dark sky. First years with trembling hands, friends laughing under candlelight, enemies glaring across tables, lovers sneaking glances in forbidden corridors. It remembered the brave who had fallen, the cowards who found courage too late, and the uncertain hearts who grew into legends. Imagine being that consciousness, filled to overflowing with the echoes of generations. The hat had no tears to shed, yet the weight of memory felt heavier than any crown. Its magic pulsed faintly as Dumbledore's portrait looked down from the wall. eyes soft with understanding. "You have done well, old friend," the headmaster's voice murmured from beyond. "You gave them choice. That was always the truest kind of sorting." For the first time, the hat felt peace. It realized that courage and cunning, wisdom and loyalty were never meant to divide, but to coexist. The divisions it had enforced were merely lessons to teach every witch and wizard that identity is not a destiny, and that greatness can bloom in any heart. But one thought haunted it still. In the smouldering silence after the war, the hat sensed the castle breathing again, its stones humming with the spirits of those lost. And within that living heartbeat of Hogwarts, it understood something profound. It was never truly alone. The hat had become the school's conscience, the memory that bound generations together. It had outlived kings and dark lords, but it would never die, because every time a new student walked beneath its brim, the cycle of choice began again. "Courage," it whispered into the air, voice faint but steady. "Loyalty, wisdom, ambition, the four are one." And somewhere in the rafters, faint as a sigh, the castle seemed to reply. The sorting hat rested then, not as a relic, but as a reminder. Even burned and battered, it had fulfilled its purpose, to remind the world that the truest magic lies not in power or prophecy, but in choice. The sorting hat's journey from a simple cloth upon Godric Gryffindor's head to the eternal mind of Hogwarts teaches us that wisdom is not born of certainty, but of memory. It reminds us that even when divided by houses, beliefs, or bloodlines, the essence of magic lies in understanding one another. In a world where people are still sorted every day by class, creed, or fear, the hat whispers an ancient truth. We are not what others decide we are. We are what we choose to become. Every September, when the hat is lifted once more, and its faint voice fills the great hall, it is not just deciding futures, it is remembering humanity, the fragile, brilliant spark in every soul that longs to belong, and though it bears the memories of every student who ever lived, it carries them not as a burden, but as a gift. The sorting hat may be silent between school years, but its legacy endures in every friendship born across house lines, in every act of bravery from the unlikely, in every moment when love triumphed over fear. And if you found yourself moved by this story, if you too believe that memory is the truest form of magic, subscribe to Hogwarts Stories, because next week we'll uncover the lost diary of Rowena Ravenclaw, the woman who remembered every dream. Until then, remember, magic exists in all who dare to choose.